Pru, I am so excited for you to be on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
How are you?
Oh, so well, but all the better for seeing you. For those of you that are not familiar with Pru, you are in for a treat. You're going to love her wise, grounded vibe, but also just the fact that she's able to work through so much in her life and nothing's a barrier. Everything's just a problem to be solved or something to evolve from. And that's all I've learned from you. And so I can't wait for you to share that wisdom with others.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind. I know it's interesting with the problems I do see. I only said the other night with my daughter as well. I think we were like putting something together and I was like, this is a puzzle that I just can't quite figure out right now. But let's just like put it aside and we'll come back and we'll figure it out. It's life, right? It happens.
Oh, I think it's honestly the secret to it. Like because you're always going to come up against problems. There's always going to be challenges in every aspect of your life. And I just love your approach to it. It's just something we figure out.
Absolutely. I think every decade throws different things at you. And I think probably more so, I think, especially even after lockdowns or COVID, I think there's more and more challenges that are popping up because that was such a rare and bizarre things that us as humans had to sort of go through and experience. So it's like every day assessing, what's going on and how can we fix it? Because you can get through and it can take time to get through some of these things. But if you can get your mindset into the right space and try and focus and really go in, I think that, anything is possible to move forward on 100%. But there are some different things that you can do to get there. Take some time and some skill.
Yeah, and I think just before we hopped onto this call and we started recording it, we were just having a quick chat and you said something really important, and that's that like people just get impatient with the time that things do take, and problems or, hurdles or whatever, they just take time to solve and to figure out.
They do. They take time. You really have to be patient. Like even I'm up in Byron Bay at the moment and we were down on the beach. On the beach in winter, can you believe? And we met up with some friends.
Says the Melbourneite. That's just a foreign concept to anyone from Melbourne.
It is such a foreign concept. We came from like 4 degrees and it's like 24 on a Sunday here in Byron. I'm like, wow. And we're up here with some people talking about business, and there's a new business that one of our friends is starting, and he was like, it's 10 years, isn't it? And it's so true. Like a lot of the entrepreneurs and a lot of the businesses and a lot of people even that have new ideas, they say if an article comes up and they say, oh, like they've said that we're an overnight success, but we're not an overnight success. It's taken like 10 years, sometimes 12, 15 years to really be at the pinnacle of the game. So, patience you need it. And sometimes it doesn't always come to fruition the way that you see it. We can all go on different paths. And sometimes it's not the chosen path, sometimes it's not the actual purpose that you end up, going on. So you really need to just keep reassessing that to make sure that it is your purpose that you're finding.
And exactly how you've done it, being open to the pivot, which is exactly what we kind of want to get into today, to give people more confidence in a pivoting scenario in your life and business and all the things. But before we get into that, do you have a favorite quote? I would love to know.
I do. I put this out quite a lot. So it's actually from my grandfather, God bless him. And it's nothing ever stays the same. Get used to a different normal. And it is like, he told me that when I was like probably 13, like a long time ago. And he said like, nothing ever stays the same. Get used to a different normal. And it was true, because nothing ever stays the same. Everything that we go through in our lives, whether it's, from growing up with our parents to our families to then, finding a boyfriend, maybe moving in with them, maybe moving out with them, breaking up, finding a husband, working for a corporate, not working for a corporate, like having your own business, having children, everything changes every step of the way. So yeah, that was something that he really set me up. I probably didn't understand it when I was young, but certainly as I grew up, I did.
Oh, look, I think being able to embrace change is the key to success, which is why I have the change pathway, because the more you can, like, as I say, be in a relationship with change, the more powerful you are always going to be, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Change is scary, and a lot of people are really scared of change or sort of probably hesitant. I think it's like, oh, hang on a minute, this is not the normal. So what does this mean? But I think change, if I didn't have change over the past, say, 25 years of working or friendships or things, like I would never be where I am today. So you have to embrace it sometimes, as hard as it is. But yeah, I don't mind change. I don't like it at the beginning, but I think as you start to really get it into your head and think about what the future could be, it starts to make sense. And the universe does it for us. I mean, the universe literally puts that change there for us for a reason. It is like, this is the time, here's the change. And sometimes your intuition knows it. Like, you just know when it's coming, like, but you don't know what to do about it sometimes.
Yeah.
So, if only I would listen to that a little bit more. Someone told me the other day that I need to listen to my intuition more, which is true. I do. But it doesn't always mean you know where you're going, even if you do know that there's something brewing in the, in the wind.
Because I think people think that the intuition is about visions or solutions, and it's actually not. It's just about exactly what you're talking about. It's an inner knowing. Oh, things are changing, full stop. That's all you need to know. That's all it needs to tell you, just so you can be, I think, just open to the flow of that. And change has been, definitely your path. So for those of you that aren't familiar with your story, can you, kind of give us the cliff notes on who you are, how you got to this place that you're at?
Yes, there's a bit, but goodness, where did it start? So I love telling this story because I think it's important. My mum always used to say, this is how I start this. My mum used to say, every time you walk out that door, you never know who you're going to meet. So put on the face, put on something that's going to be memorable, and go out there and just, be you, but you never know what's going to come in when you're out there. So I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, so I'm at this 21st birthday. I'll take everyone back to that.
Oh.
And I was wearing a Christopher Cronus jacket, which back in the day, he was like a hot Australian fashion designer. And this girl came up to me at this 21st birthday party and said, oh, I like your jacket. And I was like, oh, thanks. She was like, where's it from? Christopher Cronus. Chat. What are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm studying media and communications. And she's like, are you looking for a job? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm in my 3rd year. I haven't really thought about it. And she's like, I've just started at Sportsgirl. Do you want to come in for an interview? I need an assistant. And I was like, oh, okay. Now, in this very same week, can you believe, I'd been studying acting all my life. So through school and everything, acting was where I was going. I just got the lead role in the Heidelberg Theatre Company. So talk about sliding door moments and change. I'd been like training to be an actor whilst at uni, not really earning a big salary, worked for my dad. He had dry cleaners. So I was literally like dry cleaner chick for 6 years while I was doing all of this sort of stuff. And then had this offer. And my mum at the time said, well, I'm not going to support an unpaid actress because I think that's where you're going. Love you, you're doing well, but I'm not sure acting is like your path. So I think you should go and get a job. So I took the job at Sportsgirl, and then I was there for 6 years, and I ended up being brand manager. So I sort of went through the ranks and learnt from some amazing women in the business. I was the youngest in the business at that time, and learnt from great women in retail, all women as well. So I think that's also why I've always probably had my own business, because I learnt from so many women. And then when I was about 27, I started Two Birds Talking, which was a PR agency. And that was with a girl that I used to go to school with. We got together. We could sort of see a bit of a gap in the market. So we were talking about, both of us had been in fashion. So we were talking about the PR agencies out there and maybe how we could do things differently. Being young ourselves, we sort of could see how things were changing, how fast fashion was on the rise, because believe it or not, back in the early 2000s, it sort of wasn't around, and it was starting to be more and more. Still didn't have Zara as yet. That was all yet to come.
All you had was Sportsgirl, Portman, Super A came in.
Correct. Yeah, well, Super A had just arrived, and they were making a massive impact, actually. Cotton On wasn't around. So it was bizarre. And then we started this agency. We ran that for 9 years. We literally worked with most fashion brands in Australia, everything from Target, to Witchery, the Witchery White Shirt campaign. We worked with Portman's, we worked with Just Jeans, we worked with Smiggle. So we started to sort of diverse out as well, out of fashion, but into, lifestyle and food. We even went into hospitality. Anyway, after 9 years, it was done. I had my little girl, Billy, and something in me shifted. I just wasn't the same person. Maybe I was slightly burnt out as well. I think when you start a business at 27, you're on a really, really small salary. You don't really know what you're doing. You just jump in. You know what you're doing from a work perspective, but running a business is so different when you're on the other side versus being in a business. But I still wanted to, there was something about me that just I wasn't finished, but maybe I was finished with Two Birds. So long story short, Amy ends up taking Two Birds Talking. I move on into One Daydream. This is in 2015, and started that business because I could see the rise of beauty. And again, if we talk about pivoting, for me, I'd seen the rise of fast beauty. I could see that that was starting to sort of take a bit of a dip after the 10 years. And then I could see the rise of beauty within Australia. You know, we didn't have Sephora. Mecca was just starting to expand. The Body Shop had taken a dip, but was sort of trying to come back in their own way. So I said I would love to do beauty in One Daydream. So we ended up having Sephora, the Body Shop, Marc Jacobs Beauty. My God, we just had so many beauty brands when we started One Daydream. And that was sort of the focus of the PR. And it gave me renewed energy as well, because I think stepping out of fashion, which can be a tough industry, kudos to everyone that works in it. It is a tough space. Beauty was a little different. It was, people were willing to share information. People were willing to try. It was all about trialing things, because there's so many products, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so many. Then the icon products, and, you know, things that we all love. And it was a whole different world. So we did that, and I did that for 7 years. Yes, 7 years, 8 years. And then 8 years. And then at the end of last year in December, I decided to close down the PR division, because I'm not saying that PR is dead, and I definitely don't want to say that, because I totally respect all of the PR agencies out there. They do a phenomenal job. It's just that the way that I was doing PR in the business, I don't think businesses want that structure as much anymore. It was shifting and changing again. I think there's a lot more focus on influencers these days. There's a lot more focus on people talking about your brands versus the media. You know, the media has their own challenges at the moment in different ways, from magazines to online. There's so much information to consume. Where does the consumer find it? Well, she gets her quick fix by scrolling on her phone most of the time. So again, I saw a bit of an opportunity. I was enjoying working with talent one-on-one individually, building profiles, creating content. And then we changed into talent management, which is where we are today. And we're 6 months in as being a full talent management agency.
Ironic that you originally, your intention was to be the talent, and full circle, you're now amplifying the talent.
Right. It's really interesting. But I think, I don't know if my calling was ever to be in the front. It was interesting. I think it was always in the back, but to be able to give them the confidence maybe that I knew that you needed when you step out onto stage, or you step in front of a camera, or I don't know. It never came to fruition. There might be something for me to go out and talk and be, I've always thought about it in the spotlight in some way, but I don't think it's going to be in the way that, you know, initially I'd started, or to be the talent. It's not,
no doubt.
It's a tough gig. It's a tough gig. Those guys do a great job, you know, every day on keeping the stories up. They're reality TV 24/7. I mean, you are switching into their channels, you are listening to their lives, you're learning about the products. It is the new advertising, and you know, mixed with reality television. It's sort of where it's at. It's a whole new world, but it's exciting, and it changes daily. Like, talk about quick. Like, if I go back to my fast fashion beauty days, God, that was slow compared to where I am now. Like, this industry, I mean, Threads just came about, so now we're going down the Threads path. Well, what's going to happen there? So it constantly changes.
And so how do you embrace, not only just see the pivots, but how do you know which ones to embrace?
Well, I mean, that is a tough one. I've always gone on gut, always. Intuition and gut has been a huge thing for me, but also talking to people in the industry and talking to people as to what's going on. I find that by now being in my 40s, talking to the younger generation, their 20s and 30s, even like the 18, 19-year-olds, that keeps me relevant and fresh to sort of understand what this industry is going to do. I think it sort of keeps me in touch, or finger on the pulse, as to how they're feeling, what they're thinking, what they're seeing. So I do probably talk to a lot of the younger generation a lot. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I feel so old because of the way that I'm talking to them. It's crazy. No, it's good. I mean, it's their world. Yeah. So like, we go, oh my God, like, I don't even know what's going on here. And then you just talk to them, and it's their world. But the more and more that you immerse yourself into TikTok, or the more and more that you immerse yourself into Threads, you start to understand exactly what's going on. It's just that I think the older generation sort of can't be, well, they never really grew up with it. So why would they go down that, down that path? But yeah, you just have to really immerse yourself into it and understand it, and then figure out whether it's something that you want to go down. But I don't think that the Instagram, the influencer world, I'm going to use the word influencer for a better term, or content creators, is going anywhere. I think it will evolve, and again, it will change 100%, but I don't think it's going anywhere. And I think it will only get bigger and bigger, but I think it's going to start to weed out some of the people within it, if that makes sense. There's going to be a change and a shift. And I think we were talking about it earlier around just, the genuine ones. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, what do you think the vibe is? Because I think it's authenticity, but
it is definitely, yeah, authenticity and just realness. We don't want to see the polished looks anymore. They're unattainable, especially in this particular economic environment that we're going in. So I think you can absolutely still be inspirational at a point, but there has to be a bit of realness with it. So it's telling that full story. I think that's why the Kardashians have been, I hate to bring them up, but God, they've been successful. Like they can do it where you get the realness, but you also get this like high end, holy moly, like that is just the most ridiculous birthday party or the Met Gala outfit or whatever it is. But they've just got the secret sauce right in what they show you and how they sort of tell their story. So that's what people want these days. A little bit of both.
So how do we, filter that down into our everyday lives and embrace the opportunity, but also the reality that in every single aspect of our life, we are going to have to pivot. I mean, in a marriage, you're going to have to pivot probably 5 times a day, let alone over the next 50 years. In your career, you may have this idea of your career trajectory, but, how do you embrace pivoting when you don't necessarily know if it's going to work out or if the risk is worth the reward and all of that kind of stuff? What really is behind the confidence or the belief to embrace the pivot?
It's a really tough one. I think it's belief in yourself though. So I always say there's no room for failure. So there's no room for failure. So if I step into a new category or I step into a new business or I step into something, you can't give up. It's very, as someone said to me, you can press pause and you can say no at any time in your life. Any time in your life, you can do it. So it's all up to you as to whether you want to do that or you don't want that. And it comes down to self-belief. And some nights you'll sit there, some days you'll sit there and go, what am I doing? How on earth is this ever going to work? I can't continue on. But if you really believe in something and you have the passion for something, you will get over the obstacles to go to that next level. Like you will, but it's about really aligning the head. But I do a lot of work with people like you, Kirsten. Do you know what I mean? Like we do a lot of work. We have conversations around what's going on. I think if you wanted to work with a psychologist or you wanted to work with, a mentor or a business coach, I think you need to find people around you that can really help open up the conversations to figure out where your head's at so you can see a clear path. And that really helps me. So I have a lot of people in my circle who I can talk to, call on, have a discussion with that can really help me just get a reality check as well on what's going on. Like let's get a reality check.
Yeah. That's what I'm hearing in your story is that it's not necessarily that you have this innate wisdom to see an opportunity or you have this great analytical brain, even though you absolutely do. I wonder if your confidence in pivoting has actually just been your willingness to be teachable by anyone and everyone. Because you said, like, I worked with these women and I saw them, and then now I speak to 20-year-olds and I'm thinking, God, I couldn't think of anything worse. But like that is maybe, somewhere I'm looking going, actually, I'm missing out on so much knowledge and so much wisdom. How willing am I to be taught by anyone and everyone?
Right. So staying open to all conversations. It was funny, where were we the other day? It's like I'm talking, Dale's over there, my husband's over there, but we were somewhere the other day and I was like, we have sitting at our table right now for dinner, each generation. we had a 10 to a 20-year-old, a 20 to a 30-year-old, a 30 to a 40-year-old, a 40 to a 50-year-old, and a 50 to a 60-year-old, right? Now, they all sat and they were all around our table having a conversation. I thought, how unique. I'm not sure that you would get this in many families or situations or businesses where you are able to actually tap in, because everyone teaches everyone different things, and there has to be the respect levels there. I think when I was younger, it was fun. I probably really struggled to manage. I think you struggled to manage people when you're in your 20s, because you're still trying to figure out who you are, right? You don't really know. Then you sort of get to your 30s and you're like, okay, well, you might get married, or you might buy an apartment or a house, or you start to get a little bit more serious. So you have a little bit more of a serious hat on, and you're sort of like, yeah, I think I do. But I think you can almost be a bit standoffish, because you're like, ooh, like I know what I want to do, but then I don't really know how to have the conversations, and I'm still trying to figure out this part of my life. And then, I don't know, in your 40s, you just sort of go, okay, cool. I've gone through all of that. I'm here. Let's take in all the information that we can to figure out what we want to do and what we're really passionate about, and what else we need to learn. But I think in my industry, though, Kirsten, there's so much more to learn. Like, I don't know in the vet space, or I'm sure medical space actually is constantly changing, but there might be industries where you don't really need that younger generation to help you. But I think when this is such a new space, you need that. But then they also need the older generation to help them with the structure and the backbone, and how to lift to another level. So if they can really complement each other if you get it right. And that's what I'm sort of figuring out, at the moment, and doing that. But yeah, there's a lot to learn from lots of people. So stay open.
Yeah, and I think that, yes, I love that. Just keep staying open. But I think that you've touched on something that I've never really, talked openly about, or kind of fleshed out openly. And that's that whole generational thing. Like, it's okay to be in your 20s and to be really confused and to be really overwhelmed and to not know the answers. And it's actually also okay in your 40s to feel exactly the same way, just with different aspects of your life.
Absolutely.
And I think that was the biggest thing when I realized I was an adult, because I realized that, oh, wait a minute, the adults don't actually know what they're doing. And that's when it's almost like I had all this freedom to start businesses, to have interests that were outside the box. And just following that, I guess, has allowed me to pivot. Although I still find pivoting just as scary as I do exciting. So, if you're, anyone that's listening to this that might be feeling, oh, I just feel there needs to be pivot in my career. I just feel that there needs to be pivot in my relationship, or there may need to be pivot in where I'm living. What would you say to them in terms of that fearful feeling or apprehension that they may have?
I always say, jump off the cliff. No, I'm kidding. No, put the parachute on and just go. No. I do say that occasionally, but only in the right scenarios. I think you have to take stepping stones. If you don't dip the toe, so to speak, into something just to see, or have a conversation with someone, or open yourself up to thinking, because we get stuck in our heads. So you need to be able to talk to other people to figure out if you're making the right decision, or what could it be. And you won't always necessarily agree with everybody that's giving you that information, but you almost just need to take a little step. And this is when I was doing my consulting back in the business last year. If people had ideas for a business, you can't know whether you're going to be successful or not until you take a little step. That doesn't mean that you need to go and invest $100,000 into something. No. It's about taking the first step. It's about investigating the space. It's about understanding the space. I think one of the most interesting things that we did, my husband and I, is we started Batch & Co., which is, the alcohol brand. Now, we had never worked in that space. There's been lots that we've learned, and that has been like a 6-7 year project that's going on. It's still ongoing. We're still learning. But, because of what we've learned, it's allowed us to get to a lot of other levels. And now we have over 1,500 stockers within Australia. If you had asked me that 6-7 years ago, I would have been like, I have no idea where this is going to take. And neither would Thomas, who's our, co-founder with us. So it's just about the stepping stones. That is really the key. And you just need to find the right person to talk to. Look, I'm not scared to reach out to people on LinkedIn. I'm not scared to reach out to people on Instagram. If you don't ask the question, you'll never know. You'll never know. And I think people are really hesitant to even reach out to someone. But I think because of my PR background, I had to reach out to everyone. I had to reach out to all the media outlets. I had to reach out to celebrities. So that's innate in me because of that PR background, I think. So, but that's a really big tip that I give to everyone. You'll never know if you never ask. And you can sit on your Instagram and you can watch people in the background and think, oh my God, and how are they doing that? Go and speak to them. If they don't reply, they don't reply. So what? What do you got to lose?
I think that's the biggest thing I've learned in business is that you might see someone, who is public or in the public field or whatever, but they are literally just the person that was just willing to ask and put themselves out there. That is the difference between them and you. That is it.
Correct. I know. It's funny, Lisa Messenger, I remember when she was doing the Collective magazine and she used to have these great quotes. And she was like, I wish I could remember the actual quote. It was fantastic. It used to motivate me quite a lot. But she was like, there's no difference in that person being where they are other than they've put themselves out there and they're showing you their lifestyle or their business or they're, talking in their own way versus you sitting there going, I really want to do that. Like, I really want to do that, but I can't. And then people are going to judge me. People are going to talk about me. And people are. People absolutely are going to talk about you. It's always the case. And you just have to somehow put that to the side and rise above it. Always, my mum used to say, that's another good saying, like, rise above it, rise above it because you know who you are. And if you are living, a real, genuine, authentic life, the right people will come to you. They're the right people. So
I think it's what circling back to what we were talking about at the beginning in terms of how you see your industry going into really authentic content creation and authentic connection between people and products and all of that. That's really what it comes back to. So if you're pivoting and it's not actually authentic, then you're right. You're going to probably fall on your face.
Yeah.
And life will give you, I believe, energetically, life will give you a lot of opportunities to stay really safe and really the same. So if I look back to when I left education, the absolute sensible thing for me to have done was to go and get another job in education to bank that money, to go and get another job in education to bank that money. And then maybe, in inverted commas, save up to then go out on my own. But it's just delaying the inevitable. Totally. And so I had this great opportunity to do that. And I just didn't do it purely because not because I'm better than anyone else or I was smarter than anyone else. It just wasn't authentic to me.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And you're right. As a result of that, I've met the right people. I've connected with amazing people. And it has allowed me personally to flourish, let alone professionally or whatever.
Absolutely. Because you're enjoying what you're doing. Like I can go back into a 9-to-5 job as well. I could go into
how employable you are. My gosh.
Don't get any ideas, everyone. I'm okay here.
Hit her up.
Yeah.
It's true. Everything's got a price.
Everything, true, very true. Yeah, and after all the headaches, oh my Lord, in your own business. But yeah, I don't know. It's I think once you start your own business, it's hard to go back, and it is challenging every day. Someone said to me last night, I was on the phone to an old friend last night. She was like, how do you just juggle everything? Like, you've got Billy down at a surfing lesson, yet you've just done this deal on the other. She's like, what do you do? Who are you? And I was like, but it doesn't feel weird to me because that's always been my life. So I just said to her, it's just always been my life. So I don't see it, like the 10 plates spinning are okay in my head. But for some people, 10 plates spinning cannot be good in people's heads. So it's how you just go, well, that's normal. Like, that's just my normal life. And I'm just going to juggle it as best I can. One or two may fall off, but that's okay because we're going down this path. And I usually have I think it's really good to have 3 or 4 ideas that are new to what you're doing, always just spinning, because it keeps you focused on a vision, on a path that could be there. Because otherwise you're going to get bored, right? You're going to sit there and just be like, well, this is it. Like, oh, this is it. So you just got to always have that there, which could then you might have a conversation with someone else and they're like, oh, that's a good idea, but maybe you could do it this way. And that's really what's happening for me at the moment, out of One Daydream. I won't talk about it now because I always think I put the moz on it, hilarious. But there's 2 or 3 other things that are there that, potentially will come to fruition by the end of the year. Nothing huge, nothing that anyone else hasn't probably already done. However, it's something that will build the One Daydream business and also help me focus and grow it in different ways. So,
yeah, pivoting clearly not only keeps you personally fresh and on your toes, but it keeps, what I'm hearing is pivoting actually keeps you passionate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you can just become stagnant. How many times have I spoken to a brand? I'll never forget, years ago, we worked with this gorgeous, I'll just say homewares brand, long time ago when I was at Two Birds. And it was a father-son business. And the father had his way in running that business since, 1972 or wherever it was. Beautiful, beautiful products, great store, solid location, solid house. So everything was solid, solid, solid. But you had this new generation coming up that had come into Dad's business and wanted to change things up. He knew different fabrics. He knew design trends. He could see that things were moving. And Dad was really, like, you couldn't move him. He was like the Blarney Stone. He was not like moving anywhere. Do you know what I mean? There was a stone that was stuck there for 100 years. You weren't going to move him. And I think it was really frustrating for the son because we needed newness to also PR that brand. The old brand had a heritage story, but it wasn't what the future needed. And they sort of made a few changes, but it was sad not to see it go to another level, which I think it could have if he had have pivoted. Because if the father had have pivoted that business, it would have gone into the future of actually where I think homewares and linen and sheets and all sorts of things were going. But unfortunately, it didn't, because perhaps that guy was also scared because this was a certain way of doing things. But the world's changed so much. We have to keep moving with it.
And be okay to be scared. I very early on in my business, Pru and I actually have a mutual friend, and that's how we connected. And very early on in my business, Pru said something to me, which I was like, oh, don't say that to me. I don't want to do that. So it was okay, but I always allow myself to sit with something just long enough so it kind of seeps in, and but not long enough that I become fully comfortable with it. And so for me, there's that delicate balance of, okay, I've got this advice. I'm just going to ignore that for a second because it's the last thing I wanted to hear. But knowing full well that if it's the last thing I want to hear, then it's probably the first thing I should be doing.
Yep.
And you were right. And by following your advice, it allowed me, okay, sure, you were right in business, but more importantly, you were actually right in terms of me becoming that next version of myself and to build confidence and all of this kind of stuff. So as we say, nothing is ever as it seemed, and you wouldn't have known by giving me that advice at the time. But if it scares you, if it feels ick, then you should probably sit with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the hardest things that will change you for the better. The toughest conversations, the toughest movements. But it will also excite you. Like it will it will get that fire going. And I think there's so many people that I see in business that have lost the fire. I see that over and over and over again. And part of me also thinks perhaps that's why I sort of gave up PR as well, because I felt like people were trying to come to me to find the fire.
Oh,
now PR's,
that would make sense. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, cool. I can help stoke the fire, but if the fire's already gone out, we're done. Like it's and I would see that a lot with businesses, and it was really sad. One particular business, which has now closed its doors, had come to us, and I just knew that the PR wasn't going to do what she thought it was. It still got great publicity, but it wasn't actually giving her what she wanted at the end, and unfortunately she closed her doors earlier this year. But it's really interesting. You've got to have that fire in you. And I mean, look, I'm a fire sign, so maybe that's part of why it is as well. But
maybe you're just a bit mental.
Yeah, maybe a bit mental, grounded but mental. That would be a good way of explaining me. I just don't overthink it either. Just try not to. I think the best advice is try not to overthink it too much. I think if you sit there and you sit in your own thoughts, and you'll talk yourself out of it. You absolutely will.
You can talk yourself into and out of anything. I saw something on TikTok last night that said, how do you know your business is going to work? And it's like, nobody that ever started anything knew it was going to work. Get over yourself. You 100%. Make it work, or you 100%. Pivot so it does work.
100%. Well, perfect example of that is I said to the team, I'm going to take us all to Byron Bay for, 3 weeks in June, July. And they all looked at me and they were like, yeah, okay, whatever. Another idea from Pru, throwing it out there. And I was like, no, we're going to do this because I think it's great for culture. I think it's like shocking weather in Melbourne, let's be honest. So let's get out of here. And, let's go and meet some other people in another state. I think it will really just get our fires burning again in such a cold environment. And they were sort of like, oh, anyway, of course it's booked, flights are booked. And then we're like, oh my God. So we came up here and brought the team to Byron. So I'm still here for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And we met great people in Brisbane. We went to the Gold Coast. We met great businesses here. We had great team bonding. We did cooking together. We watched the whales together, made some memories as well, because if we are going to step on this next level as a business, this was part of, I guess, the change of what I wanted to do within the business and how to get the team on board. And, they loved it. They're like, where's the next trip? So now we're planning the next trip and, what to do and how to sort of keep us together, because
how do I get on your books? I want to come.
I know. You need to come on the next one. Totally. It's so fun, but we're still working, but it just took us into a different environment to keep the fire alive. And I think that's, really, really important, especially when you're a small, tight team. So, yeah, so it's been good.
I
just did it. I didn't think about it. I just booked it. I was like, we're going. That's it.
Don't overthink it. Just go for it. If it feels good, just do it. You'll figure out the rest later. If it doesn't work, whatever. You've been to Byron for 2 weeks. The end.
Correct.
You won't go back, but you probably will.
I will. I love it up here.
I know we don't know how we're going to get back to Melbourne now. Lucky your child's in school, so you have to go back.
Yeah, I have to go back. Exactly. Yeah.
So people might not be looking for, a leg up as a content creator or anything like that, but I still think follow different people's paths, different people's journey outside of your realm, because there's so much to learn. So where can we find you? Where can we follow along with you and kind of keep seeping in this vibe and expanding our curiosity?
Yeah, well, you can follow me at Pru Corrigan on Instagram. I tend to do a lot of quotes. So someone said the other day, "You love your quotes," and I said, "Yeah, because they really resonate with me at the time." So you can guarantee if I'm sending quotes out, it's something that's happened to me at the time. So it is very genuine in terms of what I'm thinking. There's the One Daydream team as well. So if you just want to check out what our content creators are doing, check out at One Daydream team on Instagram as well. And then, stay tuned for what else I'm going to be doing. I mean, at the moment, my focus really is One Daydream and the Talwnt division and what we do within Australia around that. But I know that there's lots of people that, need help just on getting that fire and finding it from a motivational point of view as well. So that's something that's always been swimming around. And again, my intuition knows it's the right thing to do. It's just about taking that stepping stone. So, but yes, there will be some other things coming up in the pipeline. But for now, this is my focus, because that's the other thing. I can get really distracted. So I have to you have to hone it in and make sure that as a creator that I am, that I don't start creating, everything. Got pizza over there in the oven and my chicken roast in that one. So, but
I think that also comes to that intuition and being okay with being patient. It doesn't all have to happen at once. Most of the ideas I've executed have been actually in my head for 10 years. But now it's like, oh, now's the right time too. It just feels right, or it just flows, or whatever, a door opens and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I've got what you need. Boom.
Timing is so right. Sometimes I won't reply to people or I won't do things because I know the time's not right. It's not to say no, it's just the time's not right, but I know the time's coming. And I don't know how I know that. That's just something that you start to learn. Timing is very, very, very important.
Because we're middle-aged now. We have wisdom.
Not sure. Yeah, might be. But yeah, timing's always good. And to think, not to overthink it, but to also just make sure that it is the right time for you personally. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for making the time to come on to share your fire with us, because I'm sure it's warmed a lot of people's imagination or even just their confidence in pivoting. As you do for me, there's the dog.
There's the dog. There's Louis, but he was so good until the end.
He knows the timing's right. He's got to go. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kirsten.